The main reason you run out of things to say when you're talking to women that you like is not because you don't know how to speak. You can speak perfectly fine when you're talking to a friend, and you can keep a conversation going and keep it interesting. You don't feel like you run out of things to say. If the conversation goes a bit quiet, you start talking about something else, and you don't panic. But when it comes to women that you find attractive, girls that you really like, suddenly you run out of things to say. And it's not because you're broken and you don't know how to speak, as I said. Instead, it's because you don't have enough confidence around women that you find attractive. That's what the real problem is. And what happens is that your brain gets clogged up with thoughts based on worries and doubts, right? You're worried that if you say something she doesn't like, she'll lose interest in you. And you doubt that she actually likes you, and what you're saying is good enough, and if you're going to be able to keep the conversation going and keep it interesting. And because of that, you don't have much mental space left to just flow and say what you want to say, or just come up with something interesting to keep the conversation going. Instead, because you're doubting yourself around the woman, you stop yourself from saying certain things and you censor yourself, right? You don't end up being your real self around the woman. You end up giving her a different impression of who you are. And she notices that you're struggling to keep the conversation going, that you're worrying, you're panicking, and you're starting to feel insecure and doubt yourself, and that's why she starts to lose interest. So here are a couple of examples to help you understand. I'll give you the confident version of what a guy will say and an insecure version, which then makes it more difficult for him to keep the conversation going, and you'll see why. So the first example is that a guy has been lifting weights in the gym 3 times a week for about a year. And a woman says, "You look like you work out." And he says, "Yeah, a few times a week. I enjoy it." "You look great yourself. Do you work out or?" And as a result, he's being confident and charming by showing some interest in her. And he's also keeping the conversation going by asking her a question. Many women also get lost for words at times when you're talking to them, so you often need to add in a question at the end of making a statement to help the woman into the conversation with you and help her come up with something to say. So the insecure version, the woman says, "You look like you work out." And he says, "Oh, yeah, kind of. Not much though. I mean, I probably should do more. I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet, so..." And she then sees that he doesn't feel confident about how he looks, so she loses some attraction for him because he's demonstrating insecurity, which is not attractive to women. She also doesn't really know what to say after he has said that, other than take pity on him and maybe give him a pity compliment of, "Oh, you look fine, don't worry," sort of thing. But women aren't attracted to that type of dynamic where they have to show pity to a guy and pat him on the back and lift his chin up. It's not attractive when a guy is being insecure like that. So what often happens if a guy says something like that is that the woman won't say anything, or she'll give him a pity compliment or something like that, and he will then feel like he's running out of things to say. But what's really going on is that he doesn't feel confident enough around her. He's doubting himself and he's saying insecure things. And from there he notices that she's losing some interest, so he then feels even more insecure and nervous, and his brain becomes clogged up with worries, doubts and fears. The next example is where a woman questions his taste in music. The woman says, "You listen to that band? They're kind of old school." And the confident guy says, "Yeah, I like their sound. It's great music. How about yourself? Who do you listen to these days?" He owns his taste in music in a confident way, which is attractive because it shows her that he doesn't need her to approve of what he likes. He also seems cool and easygoing about it, rather than thinking that it's a problem that he likes that type of music. And importantly, he then helps her into the conversation by asking her a question like that at the end. Now, the insecure version, the woman says, "You listen to that band? They're kind of old school." And he says, "Yeah, I know. I probably should listen to newer stuff. I mean, everyone says that to me." She then senses that he's unsure about his own taste and seems willing to change it just to fit in, which makes her lose attraction for him. He then notices that she seems a bit put off by his answer. And what happens? His head fills up with worries, doubts and fears, which then makes it harder to come up with something to say. And he feels like he's running out of things to say. But what's really happening is that he doesn't feel confident enough around women that he finds attractive, to the point where he says insecure things and it doesn't land. And he then starts doubting himself and feeling more nervous and feeling like the woman wouldn't find him attractive. And that the conversation is bombing and he's screwing up his opportunity with her and so on, and he doesn't have much mental space to just flow and say what he wants to say. And what happens for some guys is that when they run out of things to say when talking to a girl that they like, they'll rush to ask her a question about her job or what she studies, or they'll talk about the weather or some random topic that they don't really want to be talking about. And the woman can sense that he's scrambling to come up with something to say, and he's worried that the silence in the conversation is going to cause her to lose interest. So she notices that. She notices that he's struggling and he's just trying to say something and he doesn't really know if it's going to land. And as a result, she looks at him as a self-doubting man, a guy who isn't confident. Additionally, for some guys, they go through most of their life, if not all of their life, saying things like, I'm fine once I get to know the woman, or once I've warmed up and we're in a conversation and I can see that she likes me, or I'm fine if she already has a boyfriend or husband and I'm not trying to get anywhere with her, or I'm fine if so on and so on, right? And that's one way to live life, but the problem with that is if you come across a woman that you like, you don't always have the opportunity to spend a lot of time with her and get to know her and eventually start to warm up. Instead, in many cases, you have a window of opportunity that is open for a bit and then starts to close. If the woman senses that you're not confident enough talking to her because she doesn't want a guy who needs time to warm up to feel confident, she wants a guy who's confident right away. So if she senses that the guy is insecure and he can't keep a conversation going with her because he feels intimidated by her and his mind is racing, then she will usually lose interest. She'll usually feel like the guy isn't on her level, and as a result, the window of opportunity starts to close. But sometimes the woman will really feel attracted to the guy for other reasons, or there'll be other things about him that are very appealing, so she'll keep that window of opportunity open longer. And the guy has a chance to get to know her and warm up and eventually get the conversation flowing. Yet, the better way to live life as a man is to sort out your confidence issues with women, rather than hoping that women will take pity on you and go easy on you, because it usually doesn't happen with the women that you're most attracted to. The women that you're most attracted to usually want a guy who is at least as confident as them, but in many cases they want a guy who's more confident than them. So they usually won't be interested in a guy who is struggling to talk to them and keep a conversation going. Additionally, it doesn't feel very good for you as a man to go through life feeling insecure around women that you find attractive. It's not a good feeling. I can speak from personal experience about how it used to feel when I was nervous and insecure around women, and my brain would clog up with all sorts of insecure thoughts and doubts and so on. And I would struggle to keep the conversation going. I would talk to women and I would ask them what they do for a living. They would ask what I did for a living. And I would try to keep the conversation going, but I would struggle because I wasn't confident around women that I found attractive. I doubted that they would actually like me. But when I began to fix the issue of feeling insecure and self-doubting around women, and I started to become more confident, suddenly I felt more comfortable around women that I found attractive. Suddenly it was easier to keep the conversation going. Suddenly I was able to express more of who I really was, rather than censoring myself and holding back and thinking, well, I probably shouldn't say that. She might not like that, or maybe I should say this to hopefully impress her, and so on. Instead of feeling like that, I began to feel more free to express my real personality and do so in a confident way. And that's why women were feeling attracted to it. Because when a confident guy says something versus an insecure guy says something, it feels completely different to the woman, right? You may have seen that in your life where a guy who is confident will be able to say something around women or people and they will like it. They will love it. They will laugh. They will cheer him along or encourage him or agree with him. Whereas another guy will say the same thing and people will start looking at him and saying things like, why are you saying that? Or, hey, that's not cool, man. Or they just won't be very interested or impressed by what he's saying. And it'd be more like background noise or something that someone said that isn't really important. And then they focus on something else because he's an insecure, self-doubting guy. And in terms of women and their attraction for you, what you say to them as a confident guy feels completely different compared to what you say to them as an insecure guy. For example, if you talk about something that you have achieved in life and you're insecure and you're hoping that talking about something that you achieved will impress her, the woman will pick up on that. But if you're confident and you talk about something that you have achieved and you're not trying to impress her, you're just stating a fact or talking about it and making a statement, she'll pick up on that. She'll pick up on the fact that you're confident regardless of you telling her about that or not. And she'll have sensed that prior to you saying it, and she'll sense it while you're saying it and after you've said it. And it will be completely different to her. Right? So when you run out of things to say when talking to women, it's important that you have examples of what to say, right? And that's why, for example, at Master Attraction, I always include examples of what to say in the lessons that I teach, except for the lesson on confidence. In the lesson on confidence, which is the first lesson at Master Attraction, I teach men how to feel worthy around women that they find attractive, how to see their own value, how to honestly feel good enough when you're in front of a woman that you find attractive, so you can genuinely feel confident rather than putting on an act, right? If a guy puts on an act of trying to be confident, women can easily kill that act. They can break it. They can ruin it just by testing him. Right? If he is putting on an act of being confident and the woman senses that, she can test his confidence by pretending to lose interest. And if he starts to panic and seem like he's feeling rejected and he's losing his chance with her, and he starts to feel insecure and doubt himself, then the woman knows that it's just a fake act of confidence, right? Trying to act like he's the man when really he's hoping that she goes easy on him and doesn't notice that he's panicking on the inside. That's not a fun way to live your life as a man, right? Panicking on the inside, doubting yourself around women that you find attractive. It doesn't help you when you're single, and it also doesn't help you when you're in a relationship. What happens for a lot of guys in relationships is that they'll feel confident about their attractiveness to the woman initially if she's showing a lot of interest, right? They're having great sex together and she's holding his hand, she's cuddling into him, she's texting him a lot, she's coming over, they're hanging out. But if she then starts to pull back some interest because of some of the problems that they're experiencing, or she just gets to the point where she starts to doubt that he is truly confident and she starts to test it and he starts to crumble, then he starts to experience all sorts of problems in the relationship. She starts to lose interest, he notices it, and he begins to feel insecure and doubt himself around her, or maybe he starts to become emotionally sensitive or needy and need her reassurance that she wants to be with him, and she then feels less attracted to him, she loses respect for him, and so on, right? All sorts of negative chain reactions are set off, right? It's not a good thing to go through your life with women and have no confidence in your attractiveness to them, and not know how to be confident around women that you find attractive. It's fairly easy for most guys to feel confident around women that they're not attracted to, but those are the women that you don't want to be with, right? As a man, you need to be confident around women that you're actually attracted to. And what you'll find in terms of running out of things to say when you're truly confident around women that you find attractive is that suddenly it's no longer a huge issue for you. Yes, it's important to have examples of what to say, but when you're truly confident around women that you find attractive and you feel valuable and worthy of that attractive woman, your brain isn't clogged up with doubts and worries, and therefore you have more mental space available to just flow and say what you want to say. And if there's a silence in the conversation, you don't worry because you're confident in your value to the woman. You're confident in your attractiveness to the woman. You're not doubting yourself and putting on a bit of an act of being confident and hoping that she doesn't notice that you're nervous, you're doubting yourself, you're panicking on the inside, and you're hoping that she's going to like you. Right? That's not a fun way to live your life as a man. Right? You're basically walking on thin ice the entire time. Right? So if you're the sort of guy who runs out of things to say when talking to women, focus on fixing your confidence first. Right? It doesn't matter how many examples you have of what to say. If you don't actually feel confident around women that you find attractive, you're going to be overthinking those examples. You're going to be worried that those examples of what to say are not going to be good enough, or ideas of what you've got to say might not be good enough. and you may say them in a nervous way or an insecure way, which is not going to make the woman feel attracted. If you said those same things or a similar thing in a confident way, she'll feel so much more attracted to you because confidence is attractive to women, right? So start with the most important trait first that you need to have as a man, which is confidence, and then build from there. If you avoid working on your confidence and you just focus on examples of what to say, you'll find that you run out of things to say and you struggle to keep conversations going and keep them interesting when you're talking to women that you find attractive. Right? You might be able to keep the conversation going when you're talking to a woman that you're not attracted to, but that doesn't count, right? You don't want those women. You've got to get yourself ready for when you talk to a woman that you actually find attractive and you want to be with. That's when it counts the most.